Wolfpack basketball is officially back, and we hung banners tonight for the first time in 37 years.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome to a post-game live here on Monday evening. This will also serve as your Tuesday episode, so hope you're in here with us. As always, these post-games are brought to you by FanDuel. Bet just $5 and you can get $150 back in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started. Happy Monday evening and also Tuesday for our podcast everydayers. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, NC State basketball officially tips off the newest season this evening. They welcome USC Upstate into the Lenny, no longer PNC Arena. It is now the Lenovo Center, and they're 1-0 all time. They win by a score of 97-66. A lot of different things to take in here. We'll get more into the game in just a second, but there were banners hung tonight. I have my mini replica here with me. ACC champions. That is a factual statement. That really did happen, believe it or not. And then also, they took their show on the road. They went to the Final Four. It was an incredible moment for me. I tweeted it might get dusty around me in the stands. I will neither confirm nor deny that may or may not happen. Yeah, if you watch the show, you know it did. But what a moment. NC State fans have been waiting for decades, and I do mean decades, for a moment like this one. My only complaint is they didn't spend like 45 minutes hanging the banners. I could have watched that thing unfurl for the entire night. What a special moment, though, for NC State.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree that this is an extremely special moment. This is an extremely tough moment to get to. Let's be very honest about that, right? How many teams make it to the Final Four each year? Of course, we know it's exactly 4. How many Division I teams are there, including the mid-majors and all that? 350 something at this point.
There's 353, if that's right.
Okay, so that's an extreme honor. But with that in mind, I think this should be what we get used to. I honestly do. I think
it's not crazy to think that.
Like I said, I'm a big believer in it's nice to be the white hat. It's nice to be the underdog. It's nice to be the guy everybody's rooting for. I strive for the day that NC State is the black hat. I strive for the day that NC State is the Empire and somebody else is the Rebels. And we're like, hey, oh my God, NC State's there again. And all this NC State fans are like, yes, we are there again. How are you? Welcome to our invitational, also known as the Final Four. But this was a great night all around. Great vibes in the building. I mean, Grace was there on ground and all that. And he can tell you firsthand how electric the Lenny was for a game that, I mean, it just nobody is looking at USC Upstate and saying, hey, this is one you got to circle on your calendars. And yet the energy was still there.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting because some eyebrows were raised after the exhibition game. We'll touch more on that in a little bit. But I think another thing that I wished could have been different is having more members from last year's team in attendance. But when they're off playing overseas professional basketball, it's going to be hard to do that. I did see Casey Morsell was in the house. He was actually on the broadcast, which I don't know how none of us thought of that sooner. That's like the perfect career move, I think, for Casey Morsell. But just overwhelmingly special to see Keats come out and receive a huge ovation from the crowd. While we're on the topic of the crowd, by the way, obviously there was a ton of discourse leading up into this game for the last couple of weeks with the amount of tickets we're showing still available online. As someone who was there, I was pleased with the crowd. Monday night, 7 p.m., and I get it. People have lives, and when you're playing only USC Upstate, sure, I understand. It doesn't exactly move the needle, so to speak, but I thought there was a pretty sizable crowd, all things considered. And obviously, when you're handing out mini replica banners and you're hanging real ones up in the rafters, I thought all things considered, it was a great night for the fans. So shout out to Wolfpack Nation. We know you would show up. You did in fact follow through. So that was excellent to see. Now we'll start getting into the game here. Just initial takeaways, and we'll get deeper into the weeds with some early impressions. NC State wins this game by a score of 97-66. Overall, Kenton, what are some of the things that jump off of the stat sheet to you?
I mean, our front court scoring Oh, I did say it right the first time. Our front court scoring is fantastic. It looked, between Ben Middlebrooks and Brandon Huntley Hatfield, those two absolutely carried the mail down low, which you expect them to do against a team that is a little bit smaller. But anybody saying that they weren't expecting a drop off or a lag in scoring from Mo Diarra and, of course, the big man who was the darling of the entire tournament and DJ Burns by the entire tournament. I mean, ACC and the NCAA. Anybody saying that they didn't expect a drop off in scoring from those two at all, I mean, hey, we can all tell a good lie, I guess. But those two combined for, what was it, 28 on the night? Like, that'll get it done. That'll play. If we can consistently get in that 20 to 28-ish range from those two, I think we're in an excellent position going forward.
Yeah, it was great to see Middlebrooks. Of course, he's known as the Benergy guy, every bit of that. And before we jumped on here, I was telling Kenton, it's just so funny to watch him play basketball. He's like the most random player of all time. You never know what you're going to get. He might swat one into the third row. He might commit a bad foul. He might get called for a phantom foul. You just never really know what you're getting with him. But one thing that you're always getting with him is the energy. And I think an increase in probably playing time for Ben this year, obviously, you don't have a guy like a DJ Burns in front of you. I'll be interested to see if he can, I guess, contain himself enough to keep himself in games. And still tonight, he was kind of called for a couple egregious fouls, but he gave you actually a double-double. He had 10 points, 10 boards. That's what you're going to have to get from him night in and night out. So that was excellent to see. Brandon Huntley Hatfield, conversely, I thought he had a pretty solid game. He finished with 13, 5 of 6 shooting. I'm going to touch more on the free throw shooting in just a bit, but I would have liked to see him be a little bit more aggressive. And I know it's just the first game. We're going to see a lot more of that going forward, but I kind of expected him to be a little bit more of a dominant force. So perhaps that is something to keep an eye on moving forward. But to your point, Kenton, yes, I was overall impressed with the front court. I thought they handled their business. The two of them combined gave you 25 points. That's great. If you can get that on a consistent basis, I think you're looking at something special here. Now, on that topic real quickly about the physicality from a guy like Brandon Huntley Hatfield, being that he is your biggest, most physical body on the team, I need to see him pull down more than 4 rebounds. And yes, I know it's a case-by-case basis, so to speak, but that needs to be like the enforcer, so to speak, because one of my concerns that I started to kind of take note of tonight, I think rebounding, and I said this a couple weeks ago, rebounding may be a struggle for this team at times because there's a couple times Keats was running a smaller, like 4-guard lineup, which we talked about. They gave up way too many second chance points, in my opinion. It didn't obviously come back to hurt you, but against the better teams, it will. So I think I need to see a little bit more physicality from the front court, maybe some controlled violence, so to speak. I think you'll probably get that moving forward. But for me, that was a little bit of a low point from Brandon Huntley Hatfield. Guard play, Kenton. What impressed you the most from the guards?
From the guards, I thought to myself, the way they took care of the ball. That is something that I heard was a big concern. And when you look at the turnovers, for the most part, they weren't pick sixes per se, right? In that there were turnovers that translated into instant points, or there were turnovers where you're like, what under God's green earth were you looking at? What were you doing? There were more so turnovers of like I get it. You're just starting the season. You're just running these plays against live defending when you've got guys who are not specifically instructed. Hey, what play is coming. Do not cheat it. You saw some turnovers that you were, again, by and large, I didn't see that many that I'm like, this is going to be a problem. We cannot have this type of performance going forward. So I think the way the guards took care of the ball was a big one for me, especially with, I believe it was the exhibition. I believe there were 19 or 20 turnovers, something along those lines.
Yep.
Yeah,
19.
You cut that nearly in half at 11. I got to be excited about that.
And I'll say this, I believe we had 11 tonight. I think like 7 or 8 of those were in the first half. So you really kind of tightened up in the second half. First half, I thought there were a couple lackadaisical plays. Opening night, first game jitters, sure. But guard play all told, yes, I think they did a relatively good job of controlling the pace, controlling the tempo, and obviously taking care of the basketball. Michael O'Connell, and I had tweeted this from our account, looks just so much visibly like polished from game 1 last year coming into game 1 this year. And We saw him blossom as last year went on and ultimately becomes a folk hero, hitting that shot in the postseason. But this year, he just looks like he's commanding the floor whenever he's on it. And that was so inspiring to watch from him because we need him to be a floor general. We need him to make the right play, make the right pass, take the right shot when it comes time. His three-point shooting looks smooth as it ever has been. And perhaps that's a factor that wasn't exactly thought of that much coming into the season. If he can consistently knock down 3 or 4 threes a game, that changes a lot of the way the offense looks. So I love what I saw from Michael O'Connell tonight. Marcus Hill, and I've seen some comparisons thrown around to perhaps some Darian Sebron. He is a wizard in the paint. And I know, again, disclaimer, game one, I got all that. He looked really good in the paint. Like surprisingly shifty for a guard, not exactly a humongous guard at that. The way he can, get you out of your shoes and then take it up for an easy bucket. We'll take every bit of that this year. Coming into the season, we had to go get a paint touch guard. If Marcus Hill can be that consistent in the paint, I think he becomes a real weapon.
Yeah, I talk about Hollywood Smothers being too slippery, but this guy, when he's in the paint, you think to yourself, oh, they got the rim closed off. What's he gonna do? Oh, what is that move? What's going on there? And the biggest thing that I really enjoy seeing is, yes, you had some first game jitters and some we're not quite gelling turnovers in the first half, but this team was playing as a team late. They were clearly rowing the boat in the same direction and understanding where guys are going to be late. And so, this is something that I want to make very clear. This team has the opportunity to be just as good, if not better, than last year's team.
I would agree.
But that is going to be determined by a couple things, in my opinion. Do they rebound as a team? Do they take care of the ball? And can they convert around the rim? I think they have enough shooters. I really do. I know tonight wasn't an excellent shooting night. It wasn't a, knockdown. Oh, my God, they shot 44, 50, 60-some% from deep. I think they have enough shooters to get it done. But I think converting around the rim, applying rim pressure is really where this team will be at their best. And with those 4-guard lineups and whatnot, you have to turn teams over at a higher rate. You just do. You cannot survive as much because, like you talked about with the second chance points, if you're playing 4 guards, unless those guards are hellacious on the boards, you're going to have to force more turnovers to, get what you want to accomplish, get what you want to get accomplished on offense and defense. So with that in mind, I'm very intrigued to see how far we can win the turnover battle. Those are the things that I think are going to go a long way in determining what this basketball season looks like.
Yeah, and I want to put a pin in that. I think that's a perfect segue into the middle portion of our show. Real quickly, I want to get into our first live ad read. That is Roy. Wolfpack fans, it's time to recognize our Roy Player of the Week. And so far this season, we've pulled over $20,000 to help support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change, and with the Roy app, you can direct your support to any of the athletes that you love, ensuring that all funds go to the specific player that you choose. Unlike some collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and even when you receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver this content, you get all of your money back. This week, we went with Hollywood Smothers, his electric performance on Saturday. He is our Roy Player of the Week. In doing so, we've pitched in $100. We would love for you to chip in anything you can. As much as $10 can make a difference. Let's show Hollywood Smothers the love and support that he deserves and keep him connected to NC State into the offseason. Also, don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. You can win 2 tickets to any football game of your choice. That's not an exaggeration. If you just download Roy, create an account, and enter referral code LOCKEDON. Just like that, you're entered. If you're already on Roy, any contribution to an athlete's campaign will also get you entered automatically. No purchase necessary and void where prohibited. Download Roy now and get into the NIL game. Middle portion here of our post-game live here Monday night heading into Tuesday. Early impressions from this win over USC Upstate. It was a relatively impressive win, 97-66. Kenton, you started getting into some of your overall predictions that kind of stretched later into the season. I'll get more in depth with mine. 3-point shooting, I have a little bit of an eyebrow raise. We are 9 of 27 tonight. That's 33%. That's okay, but I think you do need to see a lot more consistency moving forward. I thought Breon Pass shot the ball relatively well tonight. Career high 14 points. So shout out Breon Pass for that. You did get a couple from Michael O'Connell. Dontrez Styles hit one. I would like to see him be our 3-point guy moving forward. So that's something to keep an eye on. But 3-point shooting, I think, is a little bit of a concern. And yes, again, it's game one. Things change as the season goes on. But there's some things that you can tell as soon as game one that you can kind of extrapolate later into the season. Like, well, that seems like a weakness already. My other point is rebounding, which we already talked about. If you can't be overwhelmingly physical with smaller 4-guard lineups, and even when you do have the trees in there, where you happen to run Middlebrooks and Brandon Huntley-Hatfield at the same time. We need a nickname for him, by the way. That's a lot to say at one time. But if your trees cannot rebound at a high rate as well, you're going to run into some struggles. When you face teams like Wake Forest and the Dirty Foot Club and even Duke, who's got Cooper Flagg now, you cannot give them chance after chance after chance to then bury you. So 3-point shooting and rebounding for me, those are my earliest concerns that I saw tonight.
I completely understand that. Rebounding, I agree 1,000%. It's not a glitch that rebounding suffers a little bit when you have Keats' system in those smaller lineups. It's a feature. However, the 3-point shooting has to get better. Yeah. You have to get better. And I'll tell you what. I know a lot of people are giving Breon Pass love right now. I think Breon Pass may be the key to ensuring better 3-point shooting. I think he's the key because he looks so comfortable. He looks so comfortable out there, which is surprising given how limited his playing time was in years 1 through 3. He now looks like a guy who's been in this system for forever. He knows where he knows where the pass should go. He knows all the things. And here's the most interesting thing about Breon Pass. He tied for the leading scorer in this game, right? But he did that on how many minutes, Grayson?
It was 21 minutes.
You see what I'm saying? He didn't need to be out there for a ton of time to be effective. He had how many assists, Grayson?
Assists. Breon had 2.
How many turnovers?
0.
You see what I'm saying? I feel like he could be the key to this thing because he looked really good in game 1. I don't want to put anybody down and say, oh, this guy is a waste of our time. But I think as the rotations get tighter, as the season goes on, I think that 3-point shooting thing will sort itself out because we saw some of the young guys kind of, doing young guy things, jacking up shots that you're like, when you're in year 2 and 3, you won't do that. But you're young, you're fresh. Hey, that's your confidence. Go for it. All in all, I'm not as concerned about the 3-point shooting as I am the rebounding because of that standpoint. We had young guys taking a lot of ill-advised threes that you look at and you're like, You'll learn, but it's game 1, so you want to do your thing. We get it. And, that is what it is.
On that note, though, I was very impressed with the overall aggressiveness from our freshmen. I mean, you had Paul McNeil had 4. Trey Parker had 6. Bryce Hurd, I think, was the most impressive freshman I saw tonight. He had 8. That aggressiveness was refreshing. And, I mean, yes, just freshmen, and they're kind of trying to figure out what kind of role they'll have on this team. Coming into the season, I didn't know how much of a role a guy like Trey Parker would have. If he can knock down the outside shot like he did tonight, yeah, we'll find a spot for you, man. He has that athleticism. Yeah. I mean, he's a freak athlete. He had a couple steals tonight, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Not afraid to mix it up in the paint. I think he's a more polished passer than I was expecting. The freshmen tonight, I was very impressed with what they gave you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, the future is bright, but so is the present. Because, again, as those guys get more refined as the season goes, how many times have we seen freshmen at the start of a season just be on complete and utter nuttery? And as the season goes on, and they get a little older, they learn a little bit more. I'm looking at you, Terquavion Smith, for all that he was, for as amazing as he was. As the season went on, he learned. His shot selection got better. These guys, I expect the same thing. And also, to an extent, I expect the rotations to get a little bit tighter. I expect it to be, okay, these guys are doing the positive things, making things happen, so they'll play more. I think the 3-point shooting sorts itself out. But to the freshmen like you were talking about, I absolutely love the confidence. I think NC State has suffered from guys who had the ability but not the confidence many too many times.
I would agree.
We had multiple guys in the past that we're like, dude, you're a knockdown shooter. That's your shot. Just shoot it. Even if it misses, that's okay. You've got a guy closing out from 10 feet away. I'm okay with you taking that shot. If it misses, them's the breaks. It be like that sometimes. Don't pass up a really good shot trying to find the perfect shot. Don't let that perfect shot that comes up in your mind after 3 additional passes be the enemy of a really good shot. Not to mention, that lack of confidence, your teammates can feel it. And they're like, oh, why would I pass to this guy? So I 1,000% agree. The freshmen being aggressive. And another thing, our freshmen didn't shut down when their shots weren't going in.
100%.
That, to me, is the biggest thing, okay? When I look at Paul McNeil, I say to myself, okay, your shot wasn't falling, but did you go into a shell and disappear entirely because your shot wasn't falling? Hell no. 5 rebounds, 2 assists. I mean, he did his thing outside of, hey, my shot's not falling, but I'm going to still hunt. I'm going to still find a way to affect the game positively. And that, to me, is a sign of maturity. Because how many times have I said on this show talking about basketball? A player's mature when he can succeed outside of, particularly scorers, can succeed outside of their shot falling, which is something that was good to see from him.
Yeah, it's more about how are you impacting the game when perhaps you're having an off night. That's more important than virtually anything else a lot of times. So I thought I love what I saw from Paul McNeil tonight, despite only having 4 points. Eventually those shots will fall. And when that happens,
Absolutely,
he's going to become dangerous. One more quick thing on the freshman before I have one more complaint before we transition into football. Bryce Hurd tonight, I thought he was the most impressive of the freshmen. 4 for 4 at the charity stripe. That was great to see. He has way more athleticism than I was expecting. I think he's just 17. I think he reclassified to join us a year early. So he may or may not be our Ryan Williams if he's good enough to play consistently. He looks a lot like John Morant. Actually, he basically is John Morant without the gunplay. So Bryce Hurd, I'm hoping to see a lot more of him as the season goes on, because we could use refreshment in these younger guys like that when, you have a very, so to speak, experienced roster, but if it's the young guys that are inspiring the older guys to play harder, that's only going to benefit the team more in the long run. So that was excellent to see from Bryce Hurd. Shout out Bryce Hurd. Still just a 17-year-old. That's fantastic. Last thing I'll harp on, free throw shooting. And this was a concern that we talked a little bit about from the exhibition game. It was bad then. It was bad again tonight. 12 of 21 at the free throw line, just 57%. That's got to get cleaned up. And especially long road ahead here, but when you get into the crucial moments like postseason last year, all of a sudden we became better at free throw shooting. That can win you or lose you games.
Exactly.
So once you're getting into these bigger non-conference games here at the end of this month and into December, if you're finding yourself in those crucial moments where you're consistently getting to the line and making the play, and then you're leaving it all, there at the free throw line, it's going to kill you. So I would like to see that cleaned up here in the near future. Certainly hope that it will, just game 1, but that was another small observation I had tonight at the game. Next, we're going to get into
the hack-a-pack. Oh, I'm sorry. You can't let the hack-a-pack become a feasible strategy, especially it's a bit oxymoronic when you think about the fact that you have a small team that struggles with rebounding and struggles shooting free throws. Yeah. What type of bizarre world nonsense are we looking at here?
Yeah, not exactly a winning combination there. One more quick live ad read before we get into a whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something. Our second live sponsor is FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if that first $5 bet hits. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in just one singular place. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page you're placing your bets. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to join today. Again, you'll get that $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. That's FanDuel.com in order to get started. Last couple minutes here of our post-game live after NC State's opening night win, 97-66 over USC Upstate. We're going to get into a whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something here. 3 topics. We'll tell you exactly where we stand on them. So just a couple nights after taking Lees McRae, a D2 school, to the wire, NC State puts up 97 points on opening night. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
I'd say a whole lot of nothing because USC Upstate is not our typical competition. That's not who we're going to be looking to beat night in, night out. And if we have those goals and aspirations of, like I said, becoming the Black Hat, how many meaningful games will you play against a team that is of USC Upstate quality? So I'd say a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, I would agree with you for the most part, although something I do think is a small bit of a whole lot of something. Every player that played, decent minutes tonight, they all scored outside of KJ and Jordan Snell. No disrespect, but everyone got into the game and they scored. So that was something that's nice to see so early in the season because it means, okay, we might have several different guys that can step up and contribute on a relatively consistent basis. So I think that was nice. But yes, I overall mostly there with Kenton's idea that 97 is great, but you're supposed to lay it on a team like USC Upstate. So business is business moving forward. Second one here, NC State football, transitioning now to the gridiron. NC State football put up 59 points against Stanford, the most they've ever scored in an ACC game. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. I don't know how you downplay scoring more points than you have ever scored in an ACC game.
Right.
When we were one of the original ACC teams.
That's right.
It's not like we're a Johnny come lately that was in the Big East like some of these teams. No disrespect to Louisville and Miami and Virginia Tech and Company. It's not like this is a situation where we're like Cal or Stanford, where it's like, every week we're setting the record for what we've done in ACC. This is objectively the most dominant performance we've seen all year in all three phases: offense, defense, and special teams. So to say that that's not much, that's a whole lot of something. You've got a freshman that is cooking at quarterback, finding ways to get guys the ball. I mean, you've got skill players that when they get the ball, I very seriously would struggle to name two skill guys that play a lot. I'm like, hey, if he has the ball in his hands, I'm like, go down. Like, get out of bounds. I don't trust you. Your tackle breaking ability just ain't worth it. So, I think that this is a whole lot of something.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of something for me as well. Like you talked about, there's no way to downplay scoring more points than you've ever had against an ACC opponent. And sure, it's Stanford. They've had their struggles this year. They're not exactly a defensive juggernaut, but for NC State that's struggled so much to develop some semblance of an offensive identity in this game, when you run for, over 280 yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, not to mention CJ Bailey's still spinning the rock, over 230 passing yards and 3 more through the air. Perhaps the offense is beginning to turn a corner, and we've been waiting for that kind of light bulb moment to come on for this team. You go out and you build all of the skill player talent around what we thought would be Grayson McCall, but now it's CJ Bailey, and you're like, okay, well, we have the dogs, we feel like. Why are we not been, we can't put pen to paper, so to speak. So to put up 59, it felt like everything the offense they were doing at a high level, that includes the offensive line for the first time this year. It's like, okay, maybe this is a get right game, or maybe they went through the bye week and they are turning a corner like we saw last year. So I think it's definitely a whole lot of something. Duke's defense coming up the end of this week is a much different task. They have a very good defense. I think that'll be a little bit better of a measuring stick, but 59 points, which is more than you ever scored in an ACC game before, always going to be a whole lot of something. And our last one here, I saw this from Clint Brewster of CBS Sports. He put together his QB power rankings after week 10 of college football. Our very own CJ Bailey is 6th in the country. Now, it's kind of unclear if he means over the course of the whole season or just for week 10, but 6th in the nation, Kenton. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something either way. CJ Bailey's well ahead of schedule in my book. Well ahead of schedule. I'm a big believer in saying if you're going to lose with the freshman, meaning I don't expect winning. I don't expect great things. I don't expect that. Yet here we are. Yeah. CJ Bailey is doing amazing things. And I wouldn't say he's taking his team to where we thought they would be at the beginning of the season, but he's getting them as close as he can. He's not hurt. Not only is he not hurting the team, he's not being a quarterback that you win with. He's becoming a quarterback you win because of. And that, my friends, is dangerous.
I believe he was the quarterback selection for the PFF All True Freshman team for this week as well. He's killing it. And we've talked a lot about CJ Bailey and his development as the season goes on. He's getting better and better every single week. What more could you ask of this kid right now? And so not only does it build confidence for finishing out this year, and you hope that you can ride that out and it bleeds into the rest of the team, both offense and defense, but you already start to think about next year. I do it. Kenton does it. Everyone's kind of guilty of it this time of year. But when you have a guy that's killing it and it kind of feels way ahead of schedule as well, you start to see the wheels turn. You think about the offseason. It's like, well, if we can build around this guy and what he's been able to do in such a short amount of time, yeah, we are the wait till next year's school. Haha. But yes, like actually again here, we're getting wheels in motion for another hopefully high-powered offense next year in 2025. So it's a whole lot of something. I've been overly proud of CJ Bailey, regardless, like Kento was talking about, whether it's this week or the whole season, 6th in the country for quarterback play. That is outstanding. If you would have told us before this season happened that he would have a stat like that, first of all, we'd be like, okay, you got more explaining to do. What in the world's going on? But CJ Bailey's 6th in the country at something, that's spectacular. So he's ahead of schedule, both on the field and in general. He's been a delight to watch, and it's only going to make Pac football better and better and better every single week. That'll do it for us here. Our post-game live Monday evening again also serves as your Tuesday podcast. Thank y'all so much for joining us tonight. A little bit of a weird thing because we don't normally do post games for basketball games outside of postseason, but felt tonight called for the occasion. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button, drop your comments in the comment box, and mash that subscribe button if you have not already. Tell us what you thought about the basketball game tonight. If you were in attendance, I've already seen some people tweet us some pictures from tonight. Keep doing that. I want to see how everyone enjoyed a momentous occasion like this one. We will see you all again tomorrow on Wednesday for more. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.